debate. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 1613, I call on the Leader of the Council to introduce the debate on the work undertaken by the Council in 23-24 municipal year, together with any highlights, pressures and potential issues for the coming year.
Thank you, Chair, it's a great honour to introduce this debate, and very much in line with the spirit of the discussion we've just had, I would start by saying. 1 year ago, I declared that this council makes us not rivals for power, but partners for progress. And tonight, it is my task to report the state of the town and of our organisation. But to improve it is the task of us all. Tonight, thanks to the grit and determination of our people, there is much progress to report. After years of underperformance, our tenants are seeing their homes fixed quicker. After years of injustice, Harlow people are the priority for our council housing. After years of white flag waving, our town is being protected from overreach by London councils buying our properties. After years of neglect, our town is being better maintained. After years of underinvestment, our town centre is being rebuilt. After years of stalling, new council homes are being constructed. After years of council tax increases, our residents are paying less and less. After years of poor leadership, our council is dramatically improving. As a result of our actions, this council is being transformed and our town is being rebuilt. So together, we have cleared away the fog of failure. And we can say with renewed confidence that the state of our town and this council is stronger. Last year, we laid the foundations for the future by delivering on our 5 priorities. The 5 pledges we made in 2023 to restore trust in this council and what it could achieve. Not everything has gone right, it never does. But we have changed the way this council works and have put us on a footing to transform our town over the next 4 years. Look simply at the fact we were recently named the second most improved council in the UK. That is no easy feat, but simply recognition that we are moving in the right direction. And that is why I am so proud of the fact that when, on Thursday the 2nd of May, the night of the Long Knives ensued, Harlow did not follow that trend. Many, indeed everyone, wrote us off. The now Prime Minister said, and I quote, "We must and we will win in places like Harlow on Thursday." The now Deputy Prime Minister said to a floundering gathering of localish socialists the day before the local elections, and I quote, "Imagine what it will feel like on Friday morning. Imagine what it will feel like to wake up with a Labour council." The irony is not lost, of course, that they were speaking to the Harlow Labour Party, not the many other areas who sadly did cave into that red wave. So I can only imagine what it feels like for those on the opposite benches to wrestle, as we have just heard, with the simple fact that the residents of Harlow rejected their woefully weak agenda, their abundant lack of leadership and their complete and utter failure to even comprehend what is required to lead this council, to lead our great staff and to lead this town. So as a closing reflection on those historic 2024 local elections, I have a message to all those who voted for us, especially those who voted for us for the first time. Indeed, those whose stubby pencil hovered over the ballot paper. You may have only lent us your vote. You may not think yourself as a natural supporter. You may intend to return to someone else next time around. And if that is the case, I am humbled that you have put your trust in us to deliver for you. I and we will never take your support for granted. It is our mission to work night and day, to work flat out, to prove you right in voting for us this time and to earn your support in the future. I say to you, in that election, your voice has been heard, and about time too. However, indeed, I know that for too many people, they still feel that Harlow Council does not deliver for them. And as we gather here today, too many residents find themselves facing issues they should not. too many have understandably divorced their feeling of pride in our once great town. Too many have entirely forgotten the feeling of trust in politics and in this council. And therefore, as with my opening remarks, that is this chamber's task. To talk no longer, but to deliver, and I'm proud to say, deliver we are. That's why we've set out our 6 missions, built on the successes of last year, for the next 4 years. And I passionately believe that those 6 missions will transform the future of Harlow. 6 missions to hail a new chapter in our history. 6 missions which we and every member of our team will deliver for Harlow. 6 missions to change the way we do things and ensure that the children of Harlow today have a safer and more prosperous future, and to ensure that every resident, from Arkwrights to Aylotsfield, from Hillyfield to Hare Street, lives in a better home, a renewed neighbourhood with a new town centre, a better job, a growing local economy, safer streets, a healthier future, and a council which truly delivers for them. These are our unfinished tasks, and that work begins with the most important foundation of all, our finances. We have frozen council tax for 3 years, which many cursed was impossible. We have debt down, investment up, jobs up, our finances stronger and more stable than before. With that foundation, we can quite literally and metaphorically rebuild this town, investing this year over £120 million to transform council housing and improve and deliver housing services. Over £37 million to build new council homes for Harlow families. Over £32 million to carry out upgrades to the Playhouse, Pets Corner, paddling pools, splash parks, museum, the Lattenbush Centre, and much more besides. But we need now more than ever to further improve our services and to make them more efficient. That is why this council will be bringing forward a transformation programme under the stewardship of Councillor Ellis to further improve the way this organisation delivers for residents. That will be coupled with a whole and complete new constitution, one that is fit for purpose and reflective of our ambition and energy. Turning to our mission to transform our housing, we will continue on our pledge to cut the standard repair time from its high of 270 working days to below 30 days this year. That will be true too of our turnaround time on empty homes, which will fall below 20 days. When it comes to our mission to renewing our neighbourhoods, the incredible work of Councillor Pearce will continue, I am sure, with such energy that is indeed needed to restore our neighbourhoods to their former glory, with continued improvements to landscape and tree maintenance, the righting of the failings of Essex highways to effectively maintain railings, bollards, street lights, signage, and most of all our drainage system. On the enormous growth potential for this town, one that has the prospect of creating tens of thousands of jobs and homes for our people, namely the Harlow and Gilston Garden town, we will course correct to ensure that that programme delivers for this town. Not closing roads or causing congestion, but waving a new dawn of investment, billions of pounds to build a better future for our people. Our transformational regeneration programme will complete, this year we will complete our programme of land acquisitions, making Harlow Council the biggest landowner by far, and indeed to see through the enormous investments which will result in a once-in-a-generation rebuilding. Protecting our communities under the stewardship of Councillor Charles is too one of the greatest priorities of this council. More active and visible deterrence, more effective enforcement, and a far more evidence-led, joined-up operation will crack down on crime and antisocial behaviour, ending the scourge that far too many residents face every day. Indeed, we will see through our manifesto promises, bringing back M&S, freezing council tax, demolishing Terminus House, and much more besides. Indeed, stopping London councils, dumping their people here once and for all, and so much more. We will deliver because of clear leadership and truly incredible people. We were sent here to look out for our fellow residents, the same way they look out for one another, every single day, usually without fanfare, across this town. We should follow their example. We should follow the thousands of SMEs who wake up at 5 a.m, indeed, who have had the guts to remortgage their homes, to invest in their venture, to create jobs and prosperity for our people. We should follow those who give their time for no price to support the most vulnerable in our town. We should follow those who wake up indeed every morning to make this town and our people better. And most recently, I asked a 94-year-old, lifelong Harlow resident, Miss Jenny Smith, how she had mustered the strength to care for her sick neighbour. And she said to me, "That's just the way we're made in Harlow." Indeed, that's just the way this chamber should be made, Chair. We may do different jobs and wear different uniforms, wear different rosettes, and hold different views to those opposite us. But in this chamber, we all share the same proud title, falling under the banner of Harlow residents, a title that doesn't define geography in which we live, but the pioneering force that must drive us. I commend the state of the town and our plan for the future to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. Under standing orders, we must go next to the Leader of the Opposition and following that to any members who want to start indicating. Councillor Griggs.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd ask you to cast your minds back, if you will, to New Year's Eve 1999. The clock, you can't, the clock ticks onward and strikes midnight. Just imagine. Did that herald the start of a new millennium or just the final year of the last one? It's a topic for debate. I'll leave you to discuss. What it did do was bring in the year 2000, a momentous year in my life for at least two reasons. In March of that year, I realised a long-held dream of spending time diving off the coast of Australia on the Great Barrier Reef, a place brimming with vibrant life, excitement, colour, communities, and a diversity on an almost unimaginable scale. And then just a few weeks after returning from that trip, I moved to somewhere in which I saw and still see great parallels with that reef, Harlow, a place rich in the same vibrancy of life, excitement, opportunity, community, and most importantly, diversity. One of the parallels, the very existence of the reef is currently threatened by the advances of climate change. That same climate emergency exists in Harlow as it does across the planet, and it's a threat that should be above party. We must work together in common endeavour to counter it. We ignore it at our peril, and I know Councillor Pearce will be on top of that, and hopefully in good cooperation with my colleague, Councillor Shepherd. I am delighted to report that the state of the town's representation on the national stage took a step forward a couple of weeks ago with the election to Westminster of our colleague, Councillor Chris Vince, MP. Residents rejected the personal attacks and untruths to elect a true community champion, a man who may well become the hardest working MP this town has ever seen, and I congratulate him on that election. In his recent interview with Your Harlow, the leader spoke of his 6 missions. At the end of the interview, he said, and I quote, "The number one job of the council, the first step, is to get the basics right." Well, I agree with you, and I'm really pleased to see that you're taking note and acting upon one of our key pledges that was offered to the town in May. On the subject of regeneration, look, whilst we all recognise the need to demolish things to make way for the new, residents are really keen and eager to see something actually being built. They are weary and frustrated by the lack of progress in that regard. And it was perhaps entertaining for a while to some, but the time is now surely upon us for the leader to cease indulging in his Bob the Builder cosplay antics and allow others to get on with actually constructing something, anything. The perpetual trumpeting of having cleared the housing repair backlog is as tiring as it is disingenuous. I note that there has been progress, but every member of this chamber who takes time to listen to residents will have a catalogue of complaints about repairs that still remain unfixed, leaking roofs, mouldy walls, broken guttering and the like. The same goes to some extent for the maintenance of some of the planted areas, the shrubs and the hedges. Some areas have been left well behind. Just last week, a resident in Hayling Hill reported to me a planting border that is so overgrown that, as well as being unsightly, has made the pathway to her house absolutely impassable. Again, if you actually go out and meet residents, you'll accumulate a multitude of such situations. I would strongly urge the leader, strongly urge you to rethink this rhetoric of dumping. You are talking about fellow human beings. It's not good language. Just please stop it. But I've got a question for you. Who authored and authorised the election leaflet announcing the demolition of Terminus House? How do you think those residents of that building felt when that landed on their doorstep one morning? No consultation, no notice, nothing. How would you feel if you were in that position? We know it's all hot air anyway. I mean, it must have been as big a surprise to the owners of the building as it was to the residents. I have friends and colleagues who live in that building. They're still angered and upset about being used for this political gamesmanship. Is anybody actually ashamed of the use of that sort of language? Now, sadly, for at least one member opposite, far from being exercised about you, Les, Harlow motorists are instead furious about the state of the roads, and particularly the appalling number of potholes. But fortunately, we have 4 county councillors sitting in this chamber as members. Now, the time is surely long overdue for them to be on their feet, joining the protests and demanding comprehensive action, rather than the small bouts of ineffective patching that has been going on around the town. It just isn't good enough. This is a town richly blessed with a diverse population. That is something to be cherished. The range of faiths, cultures and characteristics to be found in Harlow are, to the vast majority, an immense source of pride. To some, however, they still appear to be targets to be attacked. Be it sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, or any other form of intolerance, they must not, cannot be countenanced. Those who stoke the fires of division should not be afforded safe harbour in our town. We should and we must fight back against such illogical and indefensible attitudes with a solidarity of purpose that demonstrates our complete and utter rejection of them. I recognise for some, my having been here for a mere 24 years is an indecently short period and makes me a newcomer still. But time spent here should not be the measure by which the ability to contribute is judged. Every day I see random acts of kindness dispensed, in many cases by those who are vulnerable, impoverished, ignored or discarded by our wider society. People who rely on the kindness and generosity of others to help them through the hardest of times are frequently those that are at the forefront of giving back. People who may have been here their entire lives, or maybe only a matter of months, weeks or days. They still have something to offer. The state of the town is good, but there is always room for improvement. And the state of the town is determined by the people in it, not by any other measure first or foremost. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griggs. I move on to other members who've been indicating around the room and start with Councillor Alistair Gunn.
Thank you, Chair, and can I welcome you to your 3rd year as our town's ambassador and as the guardian of this chamber and of its standards. I'm delighted to be serving under your chairmanship. I'm honoured to have been re-elected to this chamber too, but must start by putting on record my profound gratitude to John Steer, who I'm deeply sorry not to have sat alongside me in this chamber tonight. John, we achieved a great deal in the 1 year we served together for Staple Tie. You helped me to be a better ward councillor, and I very much hope to see you back in these seats again soon. I also want to pay tribute to former Councillor Mark Wilkinson, who served much of what is now the Lattenbush and Stewards ward and did so very well before standing down at this year's elections. I think it's entirely fitting that alongside others, we're due to recognise him and others as honorary aldermen later tonight. But of course, it's pretty remarkable that I'm still here. Having met Labour activists coming down all the way from Scotland, not that that's that far away, Kay, you know it well, and had countless visits from Labour MPs dispatched to displace me from Lattenbush and Stewards, it's fair to say they left nothing in reserve in trying to wrest back control of this council. which does beg the question why they failed in that. And I believe, Chair, that it's because Harlow residents have memories that are long enough to remember how listless and ineffective Labour's leadership of this council and of this town was, and sadly we've seen a repetition of that, I would argue, tonight. But it's also because they saw in what we've done in 3 years that we've got the energy, the vision and the desire to deliver for Harlow and for its residents. Gary Lineker described Spain's win at the Euros as a victory for attacking football. Well, I think there's something similar to be said about our victory here in Harlow in the local elections too. And to briefly address my new responsibilities as the Cabinet Member for Planning and for the Garden Town, as many will know, Harlow is part of the Harlow and Gilston Garden Town project, through which this town is projected to grow immensely and to change in ways I believe many in this chamber may not have fully appreciated. I've been entrusted with the responsibility of seeking to ensure that we do maximise the benefits this presents for our town, but I do not underestimate the difficulties that will be involved in that. Indeed, when thinking about how to frame my comments tonight, I've flirted with describing the project of the Garden Town as make or break for Harlow. But it's make and break. It can and will remake Harlow anew, frankly, whether we like it or not, and many of us are on record as not liking it. But that is no doubt also because it represents a break with the town that we know, and for many of our residents, the town they knew and grew up in. I understand because I share many of the concerns that people have with what the impact of that growth on our town will be. My commitment and invitation to councillors across the chamber is that I will work with you, every one of you, cross-party, to have those concerns heard and addressed as best possible, and to help you find ways to use the Garden Town project to deliver improvements for residents in your ward wherever possible. I must say I enjoyed the reference to Bob the Builder. I'm trying to remember what the song was. Bob the Builder, can he fix it? Yeah. I think he can. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gunn, and personally thank you for your comments about myself. Councillor Nikki Purse.
Thank you. I don't typically make grand speeches of any kind, but on this particular occasion, I'm breaking with a habit. So, first of all, I just want to pay, first thing is when we talk about stewardship of our landscape and the state, and it was pointed out that there is some areas that still need work. Yes, there is, there's definitely. But I want to cast back a little bit first to actually when we went into COVID, and it was the opposition that actually made the decision to stand down our environment team, and we still paid catch up for a very, very long time for that, and we still are. But just coming back, my reason I want to actually make some comments. So I would like to take the time to reflect on the past 12 months and pay and express my gratitude to officers within the environment portfolio. I want to give a special shout out to Nora Nolan, Dean James, John Grundy, Jane Pullen and Vicky Forgener for their hard work and support over the last year. They have played a vital role in the success for our residents and our residential housing schemes and estate replanting incentive. The stock condition survey for our worn out street signs and the implementation of that to be replaced. We have also made significant improvements to our roundabouts and protecting our residents from flooding by holding our partners like Thames Water and Highways to account. Also, enhancing our landscape stewardship, and to our volunteers at Pondon Wood and Harlow Museum. For the third year as the portfolio holder, they have won the green flag. Again, congratulations to everybody involved with that. There is much more to thank officers for the daily running of our council, to the reports and policies that have to be delivered. And the last year we have seen some amazing amounts of hard work and dedication from all of our officers. The hard work could actually be seen as it paved the way for one of the most improved councils. As we move forward, I'm excited for the year ahead and the attention that we will give to climate change emergency and engaging with our stakeholders. The last administration in July 2019 declared the state of emergency. As I say all the time, I sat there to that lengthy meeting in the public gallery. And I'm as passionate today to deliver on climate change, and we will do. Lastly, I would like to express my gratitude to Janet, Emma, Hannah and Adam. And the reason I want to say this, because they have immensely provided me with support as a neurodiverse cabinet member who needs additional support. So I'd like to thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what a difference 10 minutes makes. On the previous item, the council seemed like it was potless, and now we'll have all the funding we'll ever need. And where is that going? Well, I've had a bit of a walk around myself, and Little Walk site, rubble. Westgate site, rubble. Arkwright site, rubble. Acacia House site, anybody? Rubble. Isn't it true that the foundation, and well done for using that word after what I've just described, isn't it true that the foundation of their argument is a legacy of building decay in the town? This is what we see every day. We see buildings being levelled, but not levelled up. So there's lots of levelling going on, but not enough levelling up, you could say. That's what the residents of this town see when they go to the town centre. They just see rubble. They see decay. And that, I'm afraid, is the legacy of the last year. I hope to be proved wrong. We can put a marker down, and I'll probably put it down in the book right now. I hope I'll come back next year and all of these sites will be wonderfully rebuilt. But I have to say I doubt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Making sure our neighbourhoods are free from antisocial behaviour and crime remains a priority for this administration. The new public protection portfolio is in place to drive forward a more visible and results-driven approach to community safety. I agreed to take on the portfolio because of genuine concerns residents have about antisocial behaviour and crime. In the last municipal year, the building blocks were put in place to strengthen the council's approach to community safety. In February, the Community Safety Hub was launched, bringing together the council's community safety team and Essex Police, with plans to invite other criminal justice partners to join it. The ambition is to expand the activity undertaken by the Hub this year. I also want to recognise the work of uniformed officers in our town. Operation GRIP, which uses a policing model that deploys officers in areas with a high probability for violent incidents to occur, has helped to deter knife-enabled crime. My plan is to encourage Essex Police to pursue more high-impact policing initiatives to make people think twice about carrying a knife. The awareness piece was helped by the Knife Angel campaign that captured the interest of the town last September. The public protection portfolio not only covers community safety, the enforcement of licensing conditions, policing of HMOs, and environmental health standards form part of it. I am responsible for the wider resilience piece too. Joining the different threads of enforcement and resilience activity into one single portfolio will help the strategic focus and tactical deployment of each team. Monitoring the effectiveness of the town centre protection orders, ensuring good food and housing standards, and the council's ability to respond to unauthorised encampments are of significant public interest. Work is already underway to better empower enforcement teams to do more, and I plan to say more about the new approach in the coming months. Residents want to see visible, engaged, and a proactive approach to community safety. That is why I am determined to increase the work the community safety team does in our neighbourhoods. Working with councillors across both sides of the chamber, I want to increase high visibility patrols in wards where there are issues with antisocial behaviour and crime. There can never be any complacency about maintaining the trust of our local communities. Only by targeted engagement work can we do so. The fact that the Stowe was chosen as Essex's first clear, hold, build project site, a Home Office initiative that aims to address underlying issues causing crime, shows what intensive work is already underway. The Council, through its strong working relationship with our Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, will support the development of its new 5-year police and crime plan. Now, Harlow's voice in those discussions will be heard. There is a need for more investment in local prevention and early intervention schemes. I've also recently engaged in discussions with senior officers about the deployment of a new crime prevention plan for the county. CCTV is an important prevention tool, and the new plan needs to reflect that. The placement of CCTV and how regular it is monitored is being looked at in the town, and I want to make sure that camera coverage leads to more demonstrable reductions in crime. Through bodies like the Safer Essex and Safer Harlow partnership, I want to pursue opportunities to secure funding to address crime. One such area of focus is domestic abuse. The county's Domestic Abuse Board is doing some brilliant work in this area. Its stalking intervention is a good example. Half of stalking offenders go on to commit more offences. I will lobby for this type of intervention to be employed in our town. Now, I want residents to be in no doubt about this administration's intentions when it comes to community safety. Through prevention, engagement and high impact initiatives on the ground, those who commit antisocial behaviour and crime will have no place to hide. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. Councillor Durkin.
Yes, thank you. Over the years, we have had some very motivational speeches by the leader of the council, and it's disappointing that we didn't meet that high expectation this evening. We need to say, however, within this group, there's more that binds us together than divides us. It's really just about how we do things, not what we want to do, because we all want the best for our community and town. And can I just say, I was amazed that I drove up to Junction 7 today and it's been resurfaced. It was that exciting, I wanted to drive round it again just to make it believe. So things can happen if we can work in a collective way to make them happen. And I would also like to echo Nikki's statement. Actually, the silent majority that make the difference is the staff of this council, from the person who washes the glass right up to the senior management. They all make it happen for us. But my point is about trust and confidence moving forward. 3 years ago, we were promised an internationally best cycleway. Still not delivered, no indication when it was. 3 years ago, this council supported the MP by saying they will build a new hospital. And we're so far away from that than we were those 3 years ago. 3 years ago, a lot of people, including Malcolm Morley, the former CEO, and others, worked tirelessly to bring public health to Harlow. And where has that stalled and where has that gone wrong? And how can we influence those particular issues? How many bricks have we actually laid in the last 3 years to talk about regeneration? I've just noticed the leader, and I bet he's going to give me a number, and I'll go out and count them. But how many broken promises have been made by this council, such as, I will bring you the Marks and Spencer's department store? I had a list, but the leader actually took most of them, and he told me that I shouldn't be repeating what had been said. What we have to understand as a council is, yes, we had a local election, but we had a bigger election, which was the general election. And okay, Labour won it, that's fine. But actually, we need to understand why people voted the way that they voted in relation to their concerns that was happening, and how many votes went to reform rather than necessarily the red and blue. And if we don't listen, and if we don't learn, and we don't react, we will never be able to understand our community as it was. How many times as councillors have we knocked on doors and people are not interested because they think we're all the same, and they think about the corruption and the stuff that went on in COVID, and you're all in it for yourself? It is disheartening, and it is so difficult for new councillors to want to engage if that is the message you get when you are on the door. We have to understand voting is going down in this town. Confidence in local democracy and local authority is going down in this town. Trust is going down in this town. What you're claiming today does not resonate to the people on the street. They still feel unsafe and unsecure. They see all the things that haven't been done over these particular issues. So for us to pretend everything's hunky-dory is a falsehood that we shall all have to absorb and deal with. There is no regeneration. All we've done is developed empty spaces. That's all we would do. And I do hope, as I said at the beginning, as I say at the end, there's more that we support together than divides us. But we need to have a different approach. We need to have change, which is about honesty and openness. We need to have a deep dive into why people feel that our council is not relevant. Because it is, because we make a difference. But people don't trust us and do not have the confidence in us. And even though I will remain an active critic of your party whenever I can, I do share the same aspiration and ambition that we can do better. But we need to change the language. We need to change the tone. We need to change the culture in this chamber to enable us to work together in friendship rather than in conflict. And on that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durkin. Councillor David Carter.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be speaking about politics, nothing to do with politics. As I'm the housing portfolio holder, it'll be speaking about housing, which matters in Harlow. On the housing front, the backlog was cleared by the 31st of March. Now, I've heard lots of people say, well, it hasn't, and we've heard this and we've heard that, but I haven't heard it. We must now maintain going forward, as this is a real challenge, and officers of Harlow Council and HTS should be praised for the hard work they've done to achieve reducing the backlog to nil. The plan was regularly reviewed and played a part in our nomination for being one of the most improved councils in the country. This is just the start, and much more needs to be done to maintain and improve the standard of our homes via the annual inspections and stock condition surveys. Details of where we are on both are on page 5 of Harlow Times Summary Edition, which is going out to residents at this time. When a councillor gets a request for a repair, they should use the portal and log it. If they do that, they get a response with a date when it should be progressed. Now, during the last year, sometimes these requests, these progressions, have failed. And councillors then come on to me, and I take them up as the housing portfolio holder. Every one of the councillors on this side has sent me multiple applications of things going wrong, and I've dealt with them. On your side, I got 2, both from the same councillor, and I attempted to deal with those quicker than I would deal with them for the councillors on my side, because that you were engaging. And I managed to get both of them sorted very quickly. And that's the process we have here. And if you keep going on about Mr. Brown's roof's not been done or Mrs. Green's fence is down, if I don't know, I can't do anything about it. It's your job to go on the portal and get it logged. If after a period of time nothing's happened, if you get onto me as the housing portfolio holder, I will deal with it. And I've been doing that now on a daily basis for the last 12 months. Housing and the stock condition survey and the annual inspections are going to make more problems for me as the housing portfolio holder, because they're going to bring up things that even the residents themselves are unaware of. Things like maybe a wall has got a leak in it somewhere and they haven't seen it. So it's going to cause more problems for me, but I'm willing to deal with them. And if you have a problem with housing and you can't deal with it yourself, I will deal with it for you if you let me know about it. I can't deal with it if I don't know. So as far as I'm concerned, the officers in this council, and I haven't had really a executive officer for housing. I've had 2 interim directors most of the year. And to be honest, they have been absolutely wonderful. One of them, unfortunately, retired recently, but we now have an interim director who, to me, has come in and seems to have a lot of knowledge. So I'm gradually putting my faith in that director to help us continue the improvement of houses. Now, this is not, I've not said anything political, anything against anybody. All I'm trying to do is make Harlow houses in a better condition for the people who live in them. And I want you to help me do that. If you just complain all the time and I don't know, I can't do anything, and that's down to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. It is with regret that we reach 16.2F and have had 40 minutes of debate.
Make a point of order, Chair.
You can indeed. What point of order do you want to make?
I am referring to Standing Order 12.1K, which is to request that we suspend Standing Order 16F in order to allow the debate to continue.
That's a relevant standing order that would be in order. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Perrin. Can I see those in favour? Okay. Any against? In which case, let's proceed with the debate. The next person I have is Councillor Mike Hardware.
Thank you, Chair. That's a relief. I waited till the end because, unfortunately, the leader has been cribbing off my speech, so bear with me. I was particularly pleased to receive the portfolio for finance. It keeps bringing good news all the time. Of course, I can't take credit for it because I've only been post for a couple of months, but Councillor Leppard and the officers do need mentioning for their good efforts. So at Cabinet last week, we discussed the final financial outturn of the Council for the last financial year. If you listened to Labour over the last elections, and I'll refer to a leaflet, as you've referred to a leaflet, you spoke about a £10.8 million black hole. It transpires that you misread the document. No, misread it. There is no financial...
Councillors, can I ask for the comments to cease, please, and let Councillor Hardware continue with his speech, please?
Thank you, Chair. Listening to Labour, there is a financial morass with a massive financial black hole, and the administration has been plundering the reserves. The reality is far from that. We had a surplus, a 244,000 surplus. That is, we spent 244,000 less than we budgeted for. I am sure you will agree, or not, that this great outcome is a great outcome and shows the council is in an excellent financial state. I'm sure the envy of many other councils around the country which are not. We managed this surplus despite the adverse financial climate which existed
over the financial year, including rampaging inflation. This also while we spent tens of millions of pounds fixing our housing, securing tens of millions of investment in the town, rebuilding our town, improving our council services, and, importantly for our residents, freezing our portion of the council tax for a year again. And far from plundering the reserves, the General Fund reserve stands at 3.9 million, well above the 2.5 million minimum. Even with the housing revenue account, we have performed well, despite the massive amount of work we have completed, effectively eliminating the backlog of housing works. We spent 1.3 million less than we budgeted for. So, looking forward to the coming year, more good news. We are now reporting finances at every Cabinet meeting in real time instead of up to 4 months in arrears. This is so we are more transparent and we provide as up-to-date information to members so you know where we are and how we are performing, and so you can hold us to account. This financial year, we are currently projecting a surplus of £288,000. This includes provision for a pay award, energy forecasts and business rates. This projected surplus comes as we invest £120 million to transform our council houses, £37 million to build new council houses, £32 million invested in our treasure facilities such as the Playhouse, Pets Corner, paddling pools and the Harlow Museum. All this when again freezing our portion of the council tax. I'm sure you will agree that this is an outstanding performance and a contribution to the council being commended as the second most improved council in the country. But we are not complacent. This hard work will continue throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hardware. Councillor Jake Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you, members of the public. I rise again just to speak briefly to thank the Leader of the Labour Group for putting climate change front and centre of his address here tonight, and to say that it can be, without doubt, the single biggest issue we collectively face for our shared planet. In that vein of, as Councillor Gunn indicates, cooperation and moving in common endeavour, I just want to say I really look forward to working cooperatively on this single most important issue, and very much would take that forward. I also want to just very briefly echo Councillor Pearce's sentiments and thanks and congratulations to the 3 green flag recipients in our town, the town park, the museum and walled garden and the nature reserve. It's worth noting that every year the competition gets harder, and so to retain these 3 amazing awards is no doubt a huge testament to the work and success of our officers, staff and the members of the public who loyally and heartfelt go to these services with their families in their free time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shepherd. And Councillor Russell Perrin.
Thank you, Chair. And I always enjoy our little chats at this time of year because it usually runs along a similar kind of theme. I was glad to hear that we were casting our minds back to 1999. I, Councillor Swords, can remember 1999. And in 1999, I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 18-year-old moving into the millennium, not worrying about whether it was the millennium starting or not. But what I know about the 1990s, for about Harlow, was that there were vibrant nightclubs all around and music venues where I could find out as a young man that maybe my appeal to the fairer sex wasn't as strong as I thought it might be. And many lessons were learned. I also, on the back of that, would have grown up in Harlow, and I remember play schemes and clean parks, and I would visit friends and their houses were well built and maintained. And that was as we moved out of the millennium, so the future looked bright. Little did I know that over the 20 years that were to come as I was to grow up in this town, that would cease. The ski slope that I played on as a young teenager was shut by a Labour council under a Labour government. The playhouse that I'd attended, many, many fun events, under a Labour government, under a Labour council, was shut. The doors were shut. The town park was almost sold off for development. And thank God we had people like the strong councillor Colleen Morrison at the time and her activists that helped save the town park from development under a Labour government and a Labour council. And the list went on. We had a vibrant market, we had vibrant cinemas, we had vibrant spaces to go and to be and to enjoy living. And we saw over that time finances dwindle, services shut, houses decay, town centre dilapidated. All the while, complaint, but they had control both at national and local level of all the levers of government and state, and all they could do is harp on back to Margaret Thatcher. And we talk about rubble. Oh, you've got rubble. You can't have rubble when you regenerate. What do you do? Build on top of all the rubbish? I've never heard so much rubble. Barney Rubble himself would come out with better, I'm sure. It's ridiculous. Of course you need to knock things down to regenerate it. And we haven't regenerated it quick enough in 1 year, 3 years. Well, how about the 10 years where you were promising to do something and you did nothing? Under this administration, that's starting to happen. And all through that decade, and all through those 20 years, if I look back at the young man in 1999, little would I know that I would be one of the people that would lead this Conservative group to win the election back in 2021 and to be part of a council that starts to change things, and it's carried on under Councillor Swords. And I'm grateful for the leadership of Councillor Andrew Johnson and all the portfolio holders here and all the hard-working backbenchers that do what we need to do to try and make our town great again. And what have we got? We've got improved housing stock, we've got houses being built, we've got town centre being regenerated, we've got council tax, the lowest it's been ever. Instead of year upon year upon year rise, we've actually got surplus now. Surplus, he talks about trust and lack of trust. When you put leaflets out saying there's a black hole and then you get a report saying there's actually a surplus, who do you believe? It's absolutely astounding. There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And people could see that our idea to change the town, to bring it back to what it was, a vibrant market, a vibrant town centre, clean houses, that was what they wanted. That's what they cried out for, and that's why we swept through, and that's why we continue to do that. And the other thing, if we're talking about ideas, the hardest thing to kill is an idea. That's why we still continue. People still continue to believe that those things can happen because they see it happening. They know that a town centre doesn't get rebuilt in a year. They've seen the plans, they can see the journey. It's out there, it's happening. But you do need an idea. And I've not heard an alternative idea or plan coming from that side of this chamber. Yet again, a number of times I stood here and moved shadow budgets when we were in opposition. Talk about financial trust. By the way, do you remember when they double accounted for the cost of the Pets Corner? Yes. And they argued and they'd realised they double bookkept. They couldn't even keep the finances in order on a Pets Corner. And they've written apology from the Section 151 officer at the time to prove it. They're not to be trusted. I am finishing, Chair. You've got to have an idea, an alternative. You're not presenting one. You're not presenting one. And that's why we will get on with the job of regenerating the town, making better homes, keeping council tax low, and looking after residents, because they don't want warm words, they don't want complaint, they want action. And that's exactly what they're getting.
Thank you, Councillor Perrin. There have been no other members that have indicated. And as I say that, Councillor Edwards sticks his hand up. So, Councillor Edwards, I'll take you as the last contribution before we move to summing up by the leaders.
Thank you. That was a remarkably selective account that you've just given. I mean, I moved away, lived in Harlow on and off since 1957. I moved away in 1985 and Harlow was thriving, absolutely thriving, under a Labour authority. I came back in 1991. There'd been the first economic crash, and the whole of what was Edinburgh Way had gone down literally like a house, like a pack of cards. Manufacturing base in Harlow had been wiped out, effectively wiped out, and that was deliberate government policy, conservative government policy that led to that. It led to the loss of the science base within the town. led to the loss of the engineering base within the town. That was under the Conservatives. And Harlow arguably has been seeking to recover ever since that time, economically recover ever since. And in terms of, I also remember when the Conservatives were in power, if I remember rightly, in 2011 or thereabouts, there was an Australian firm that were going to come in. Australian firm was going to redevelop the whole of the town centre, or 2/3 of the town centre anyway. And then, lo and behold, what happened? There was an economic crash, absolutely economic crash, and they pulled out. And Harlow has been recovering from that ever since. So and then we have a situation whereby you say it's, you know, we know full well you only got to look at the property that's owned by, name escapes me now. Anyway, the developers that out there who effectively have knocked down sizable chunks of our town with no date being given as to when they're going to rebuild that. And we have no control over that. And stop pretending to the people at Harlow that we do, because we don't. And then we're okay, let's move on to this council recently. You say you're the second most improved. Yes, sorry. It is said you are the second most improved. So what was that process? It was a self-nominating process. Yes, it was. You put up your names to say we wish to be considered. Sorry, I went through the process with the chief exec. The process that I'm describing was what was described to me. It was a self-nominating process. So you then put forward the process, and we then find out. So even if you are the most improved, God help the rest of us then. So we have a situation whereby, in terms of the top management in this supposedly most improved council, 1/3 of them are interim. We have no stability whatsoever in terms of, you know, going forward. We don't appear to have, or at least no one's told me yet, what the plan is in terms of moving from interim positions into when staff are going to be in post permanently, in order that we get we can carry it forward. In terms of, Nikki mentioned going from the sublime to the ridiculous, as it were. Nikki mentioned the roundabouts. I don't know whether you've been to the roundabout down there, the one just outside there. A whole load of bricks missing all the way around the side there. It's been like that for the 8 years that I've been a councillor. Nothing's been done. In terms of the small Northgate roundabout, the irony of the Northgate roundabout with the weeds growing through it and whatever, it's sponsored by a florist. Sort of sums up really where we've got to as a town. You've got the sponsorship in, you haven't yet got any of the improvement. In terms of the getting the voids down, I spoke to a woman today who identified a property that's been empty for 6 months. You know, what's happening in terms of the voids? At the moment, it seems to me, you're very good at giving the illusion of being improved, but you actually dive down into the facts of improvement, and there's very, very, very little there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I move to Councillor Griggs to sum us up.
All the best. All the best.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Perrin, who knew in 1999 we could have been in that club together? If only we'd met then. Our paths might have been so different, but here we are. A missed opportunity. Sorry? I'm not going to take up too much time on this, but I have to say this has been my first opportunity to engage in this debate as leader. I've enjoyed it immensely, listening to the different views. It's exactly what a proper debate in this chamber should be about, is an exchange of views with humour and, by and large, good behaviour. Hope everybody knows that where we can work together, we will and we should. You know that's my attitude to things. Don't look like that. And I'll cite two things that have happened in my 2 years in this chamber thus far that I'm pleased about. Get over it. And that would be the defibrillator motion, which I'm pleased is now finally seeing some action. It's taken too long. I think we can all agree on that. It has been bogged down and it has taken too long to get it moving. But the first one is up on the wall by the Playhouse, and I have had a very encouraging report from officers that it's going to proceed and enhance potential of life-saving in this town, which has to be something we can all get behind and commend. Equally, the emergence of the disability panel is something I'm particularly proud of, and I note that that meets again next week, and will finally really get moving on giving the disabled people and those who care for them an opportunity to influence how the town moves forward in its actions and the way it looks after those people. On a note of efficiency, which was mentioned, it's always a worrying word for me because the other part of that can be cuts. I don't want to go down that route. All I'm going to say, and please take this in the spirit that it's intended, is that whilst seeking further efficiencies, please remember the old proverb that I came across just a couple of weeks ago, which just happens to fit very nicely into this narrative now, is that only a foolish farmer thinks that they can make efficiencies by not planting seeds. Think on. I'm going to wrap up with breaking my own rule. I said to the group earlier on, please don't repeat things, but there's something that I've written that I really think must be said and echoed. It's been said before and it is absolutely vital. I do want to take the time to say a huge thank you to the staff of the council, and particularly those at the lower level of the organisation. It's often those senior officers that get all the praise for what's gone on and been done. I'm going to go right down to the grassroots and say I want them to recognise and know that we value their service and their commitment. They are the backbone of everything that this council does, and to each and every one of them I say a huge thank you. Ultimately, the state of this town we call home is not in the material objects but in the dynamic humanity of its residents, and that must never be obscured by bricks and mortar. We must commit to preserving that dynamic humanity, recognising that it is often in a fragile state in need of nurture, just like that Great Barrier Reef. So, Chair, you have, through your opening remarks at each council, demonstrated your love of a sage quote or a pearl of wisdom. So I trust you will agree that we in this chamber can do no better than to remember and honour the words of the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Norman Kirk. He said, "What people want is someone to love, somewhere to live, somewhere to work, and something to hope for." If we can abide by the sentiment of those words, we will all well serve the residents of our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griggs. And our final summation tonight comes from Councillor Swords.
Thank you, Chair. I will do my best to respond to some of the comments through this wonderful debate, although I am certain that some need no response at all. Just starting with the comments we've just heard, I think the council can do many things. I'm not sure it can provide those for which others wish to love, but other things it can do. I think there is a slight juxtaposition in lots of what the opposition say, and it's one that I take great issue with, to be frank, because we've just heard that the officers of this council are the backbone of all we do, and that we thank them and what a tremendous job they've done. Yet for the last hour and a half, you have slated the work they do every single day for the people of this town. The fact that we were recognised as the second most improved council in this country, as recommended by the LGA to the LGC Awards, when you take difficulty with that, you are not taking difficulty particularly with the political leadership of the council. You're taking difficulty with the people who have been recognised as being the second most improved council in the country. When you take great chunks out of the council's regeneration programme, indeed recognised by the LGC and LGA as probably, and I quote, the biggest regeneration programme of any district council in the country, you are not taking great chunks out of our political leadership. You are taking great chunks out of the people who work night and day to deliver those things. When you take umbrage about void turnaround, I might draw your attention to the fact that void figures are done on an average basis, not on an individual case, because there are some that are turned around far quicker than that, but of course you omit to mention that. You are not taking umbrage with our reporting of those figures. You are taking umbrage with the people who work to improve that service every single day. So I think there is a great juxtaposition, as I say, between on one hand suggesting that you have nothing but great respect for everyone who's working to deliver our agenda, and on the other hand spend an hour and a half slating absolutely everything they are working so hard to do. On some of the specific points, I look forward to taking Councillor Durkin to Route 9 of the cycle track network. He will see it's currently under construction, which is the longest route in the town. If he cared to read the LC whip, which I've referred him to on several occasions, he will see the plan that is now being enacted, as he wishes to see, across the town of rebuilding the entire network. And there are some very impressive things in there which show why it truly will be a fantastic cycle track network. You know, on one hand, we just heard that we must change our rhetoric, and it is one of division and so on. Yet on the motion before, when we asked the government to ensure that we received £20 million, it was called offensive, insulting, and just about every other such thing. I think it's... Councillor Perrin made a fantastic speech, but I take umbrage with one point. There's plenty I take exception with Councillor Morrison's comment. But Councillor Perrin, I take one exception with your speech. You said that the opposition done nothing in administration and regeneration. I would say that is wrong. They done plenty. Indeed, Councillor Durkin himself proposed and perpetuated plenty. He spent 1.13 million on council house building schemes that never happened. He spent hundreds of thousands on Market Square, on umbrellas, table tennis tables, new bins, and just about everything which is now to be ripped out. He did indeed make a bid to the government, which he called on the MP to support at the time, for £10.4 million. And guess what? It failed, because it did not meet, and I quote, the basic value for money criteria. Offensive. Which indeed I would say is far more offensive than that which our motion was. So what I say in response to your comments, many of which I am sure are extremely well-meaning, you have absolutely no clue when you talk about this council and what it does. You have absolutely no concept of what our staff do every single day. And if there has been anything offensive this evening, I think many of your comments to the work that people do day in, day out are exactly that. But on that very point, I do pay tribute to the 450-odd staff here, the several hundred at HGS2, and everyone throughout who do provide stability for this council, who do provide great leadership for this council, who are working absolutely night and day to improve it. I'm very proud of what this council is doing at all levels, and I say that on behalf of all of our staff. And with that, I commend the state of the town to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. And that concludes the State of the Town